Episode 8 kicks off with Rick preparing to train Angelica, but not before warning her that this is going to be tougher than anything she's ever faced. Angelica, full of determination, tells him not to hold back, ready to prove herself in the face of whatever brutal regimen Rick has in store. Impressed by her determination, he ties weights to her hands and legs and announces they'll begin with a 30 kilometers run. When she questions the unusual method, he ignores her, telling her to use her strengthening magic if she doesn't want to die. As he takes off at full speed, dragging her behind him, Angelica is left bewildered and helpless. Rick explains that this intense training is meant to acclimate her body to rapid movement. Though she's initially panicked, Rick keeps pushing, telling her the key to success is speeding up just when it feels impossible. 6 grueling hours later, Angelica is sprawled on the ground, barely able to comprehend how she survived. Rick, unfazed, mentions that his own training involved dying 3 times on the first day. Angelica, dazed but somewhat proud, is horrified to learn that the day's training is only halfway done, with more to come after lunch. 5 days into the brutal training, Angelica has had enough. She flees to a remote cafe, convincing herself it's a tactical retreat to preserve her sanity. But before she can even finish her meal, Rick appears, much to her shock. He casually joins her for coffee, acknowledging her desire to escape. He reveals that during his own training, he ran away countless times and even died thousands of times under his mentor's watch. Despite the torment, he realized that the regret of giving up would be far worse than the pain he was enduring. Inspired by Rick's story, Angelica confesses her disdain for noble traditions and her dream of becoming the first special-class female knight. Reinvigorated, she vows not to give up. Rick then reveals that he's arranged for a special instructor to help Angelica hone techniques that turn her hands into swords, as weapons are prohibited in the upcoming tournament. The scene shifts to Angelica's final match to secure a spot in the main tournament. Her opponent is Silva Hant, and both have 1 loss each. Angelica's friends notice she seems different today. The match begins, and to everyone's astonishment, Angelica defeats Silva with a single powerful kick. However, she remains in a trance, continuing to fight even after the match is over, forcing the referees to step in. Later, back at the inn, Angelica comes to her senses but feels uneasy about the strange looks she's receiving from the townsfolk. Rick, unconcerned, points out that the important thing is she won. The group discusses rumors about an orb being in the Empire, but they soon discover the news was false. That evening, they all gather for dinner, where Rick advises Alisar against participating in the tournament, given the risks involved. After finding out that Angelica is competing in the tournament, Braun is curious to learn about her training. Angelica proudly reveals she's been learning under Rick and Rionette. Rick praises her as a fast learner with natural talent, but Angelica isn't entirely confident she's had enough time to prepare. Braun reassures her that hard work never betrays, and Mizette chimes in, encouraging her to trust her efforts. With everyone cheering her on, Angelica's mood lifts. The scene shifts to the start of the main Fist King tournament. The announcer, with her usual flair, congratulates the participants and reveals that the matchups have been decided by an impartial lottery. First up, Geese vs. Herman Muller, followed by Angelica vs. Doug Heap. Rick's match is against Serena Kane, and he's relieved he would have surrendered on the spot if it were Braun. Braun himself is set to face Donnie Fisher, much to Melicia's delight. When Eddie Grace is announced to fight the reigning champion, Kelvin, the betting booths open, and the crowd goes wild. Angelica, sensing something off, points out to Rick that Geese's path to the finals seems suspiciously obstacle-free, clearly orchestrated, so he won't face tough opponents until the final showdown. Rick and Angelica speculate that Snape plans to hype Geese up only to bet against him in the finals, making a killing when Geese throws the match. Angelica, ever the determined fighter, vows to derail these plans by defeating Geese in the second round. Rick teasingly asks what she would have done if she had faced Geese in the final, but Angelica is caught off guard, realizing she hadn't thought that far ahead. Rick and Braun head to the stands, where they bump into Kelvin. Braun, ever the competitor, declares he's gunning for Kelvin's championship belt. Kelvin's master observes his fighter's determined expression, reminiscent of his early days, and recalls the time he brought a young Kelvin to his gym. Kelvin was eager to fight the gym's top contender, only to be swiftly defeated. Yet, instead of being discouraged, Kelvin's defeat ignited a fierce desire to train harder, leading him to victory in his first Fist King tournament. 6 years later, that fire still burns. In the first match, Herman's punches bounce off Geese like pebbles, and Geese, bored and annoyed, ends the fight with a single punch. The announcer hypes him up as possibly the strongest sponsored fighter in history. Angelica and Rick note Geese's power, but find his amateurish movements odd. The rest of the matches proceed without much trouble, with Rick, Braun, and Angelica winning handily. When the champion Kelvin faces Eddie, the crowd is buzzing with anticipation. Eddie tries to strike first, but Kelvin counters with uncanny precision, almost as if he knew the attack was coming. Rick is amazed, but Braun explains that Kelvin has trained his sense of smell to the point where he can detect changes in his opponent's adrenaline and electric signals, effectively predicting their next move, a technique they dub Fort. Kelvin then playfully allows Eddie to land a hit before taking him down with a single, decisive blow. Rick realizes that Kelvin had been toying with his opponent all along. As the next round looms, Rick is eager to see the fruits of Angelica's training. Snape, ever the opportunist, takes a seat beside Rick, opting to watch the match up close since it's between his brother and his fiancée. Before the match, Geese fails to recognize Angelica as his opponent, only recalling that his brother told him not to damage her face since she's to be his future wife. Angelica, incensed by his arrogance, vows to beat him senseless. In the arena, the match begins, and Angelica's initial kick does little to faze Geese. Dodging his counter, she realizes that conventional attacks won't work. To everyone's shock, she cancels her strengthening magic and unleashes a technique called Mono Reflex Inversion. Charging at Geese with Blink Step, she manages to land a blow, slashing his gut and proving she's not to be underestimated. And that, my friends, is how episode 8 comes to a close. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of action, drama, and some serious smackdowns, hit that like button. And for more epic recaps, make sure to subscribe because you wouldn't want to miss out on Angelica kicking more butt, right? Stay tuned, stay awesome. Don't leave yet. Our other videos are waiting to entertain you like a buffet where every dish is your favorite.